Today we've got Diego Olerni, who is the principal cloud architect working with Vodafone. You're welcome, Diego. And we've got Nektaria Efthymiou, who is the director for network planning security at BT. Fortunately, we were meant to have another panelist, Yui Wang from China Mobile, who leads the network and AI initiative at China Telecom. But unfortunately, due to her ill health, she's unable to join us today. But we will cover as much as we can with Diego and Nektaria on this call on this panel. Before we go into the discussion, I'd like to remind everyone in the audience that we'll be addressing as many questions as we can at the end of the session. So please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box on the bottom right or left of your screen. And so with that, we can now move over to the panel discussion. So Diego and Nektaria, I'm just going to ask a quick question of you. Maybe, take a few seconds to just introduce your role and how that relates to the topic that we're covering today. So I'll probably start with you, Diego.
Thank you, Adaora. Good morning, everyone. My name is Diego Olerni. As Adaora introduced me, I'm a principal cloud architect with the IT platform engineering department in Vodafone Group. I've been with Vodafone for the last 7 years. I've been working with cloud for the last 12 years, so quite a bit of experience in the cloud, and before that with traditional IT on-prem. So I've seen a bit of a transformation from traditional to cloud and automation.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Diego. Nektaria, I understand you're not able to turn on your video, but that's okay. But please feel free to let us know more about your role at BT and how it relates to the topic.
Adaora, Nektaria has logged out temporarily, so she will come back in a moment. Okay.
Okay, she just joined.
Sorry, I have some technical problems. I cannot make my camera shows that it works, but you cannot see me, I assume, right? Can you see me? No, you cannot.
No, we can't. But we can hear you. We can hear you.
I'm very sorry. I'll try one more time, but it doesn't seem to work. Sorry for that. Okay, so shall I introduce myself then? I'm Nektaria Efthymiou. I am responsible for the network platform and security research team in BT. BT is one of the few service providers that have network research teams. And in network research in BT, we have two organizations. One is the infrastructure research, and the other is the network platform and security research, which is my team. And in my team, we are looking innovations and technologies on the platform and security area, which is primarily, in a simple way of putting it, we look data in different lenses, try to address different business problems. So, for example, we apply AI and data to address security, automation, sustainability, asset management, service orchestration. So these are the type of things we do.
Okay, thank you so much, Nektaria. Pleasure to have you on the panel, and it's fine. We understand technology can kind of misbehave sometimes, so it's okay. We can hear you loud and clear. So thank you so much for participating in the panel. So we're going to go into the first topic or first question for the panel, and that's really to kind of understand how your organizations view the use of AI within their network and IT environments, especially around the topic of automation. Because there's a lot we're hearing about that. So we just want to learn from your perspective what your organizations are doing around this area. So I'm going to start with you, Diego. If you could please share with us your view.
Sure. Well, let's start with saying that AI and Gen AI, which are slightly different topics, but tend to be bundled up into one. So those two approaches are seen as quite strategic within Vodafone as a whole. I'll probably touch on that a bit later, but it's definitely, there's a lot of attention on what AI and Gen AI can bring to Vodafone as far as a competitive advantage or optimization. We all know that telcos are after a lot of pressure to improve efficiency, for example. So there is a lot of attention and expectation on what AI can contribute. With regard to what we're doing with AI right now, we are really assessing how AI can be applied to all aspects of life at Vodafone. So we're going from any generic Office IT tool with, for example, Office Copilot. But then we're also looking at the developer experience. So seeing how AI or Gen AI can help with, for example, code refactoring, which is one of the challenges that we have with an aging code base, all the way to, since we're talking about automation as well, automating operations, going towards a no-ops framework where AI can contribute to reducing the overhead to operations team when it comes to resolving incidents or performing day-to-day maintenance, etc. So that's kind of a high-level view of where we are now. Happy to dig deeper into any aspect.
Sure, that's very helpful, Diego. You talked about reducing overheads within the. Can we just deep dive a little, because there could be there could be some kind of negative view around that, but I guess the key point is around cost efficiency, right, and reallocation of resources where required. Could you just double down a bit on that side of things in terms of how Vodafone is achieving that?
Yeah, well, the way I see it, there's obviously been announcements about workforce reduction over the years from many telcos. But what we're looking at is not replacing humans with technology. It's actually enabling the workforce that we have to perform better and to deliver more and quicker. So in that respect, for example, if we look at one of the recent initiatives that we looked into, which was refactoring a legacy application in a new coding language with the help of Gen AI. You can do that without AI. You can do that. There's plenty of skilled developers who can read code, take their time to understand code and rewrite code in a different language. That's not something that we are inventing today. But AI can help with understanding code quicker, proposing new lines of code that, again, we have a developer looking at and validating. So there's always an element of human validation, but AI can complement that with suggestions and trying again to reduce the amount of time that it takes to perform a trivial task or a less skilled task, rather than eliminating the human that's behind that task. So we can actually allow skilled engineers, skilled developers to focus on the task where they bring the most value, rather than having to deal with repetitive tasks where their skill is not appropriately utilized. And that's on the developer side. Similar things can be done on the engineering and operations side. Don't want to take too much time, but yeah, can go into that as well if you like.
So that's very helpful. Thank you very much. I think the point you raised there is really important, and it kind of helps us as an industry understand the positive side of using AI, which is really about making sure that you get the best out of the resources that you have. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make it doesn't justify the investment in resources if they have to spend time doing things that are more repetitive or indeed not innovative in any way. So it's about reallocating the time, to doing more innovative work with this technology, as opposed to the thinking that AI will replace workforce. So that's really helpful. Thank you very much, Diego. I'll just go over to Nektaria. Nektaria, hi, could you please, share share with us your views, your organization's views when it comes to the adoption of AI more at a high level.
Yeah, so I guess let me try a little bit on the automation, because for me, from the network point of view, automation, if you like, programmability of the network and automation is our North Star. But for me, automation is a journey, and it involves different steps up the way. First of all, it requires some foundations to be in place in order for the networks to be able to evolve. And BT is already modernizing the network. We migrate services from legacy. We shut down legacy in both fixed and mobile. And also we are launching new technologies that can, if you like, help us moving to this vision of programmability and autonomous networks. Now, in order to do that, though, we need also the networks to be built with the right architecture. So we are actually in the process of delayering our network, disaggregating and cloudify when necessary, and also use APIs within the network to enable this programmability. So for me, this is, if you like, the foundation to build on top of that. The next other important area is data. So in order of all these AI and machine learning and all these things we're talking here in automation, it requires a very strong data fabric. And BT's journey on the data has started a few years ago. And effectively, with the data, we need to make sure we have data available when needed to stream from different sources and break down the silos within the organization of different domains. So for me, these are, if you like, the two fundamental areas where we are in the roadmap of actually we are executing as we go along. In terms now of AI, there are two, for me in the organization, there are two ways you can see this happening. There is one that is bottom up, which is basically triggered by domains or subdomains or teams that they realize that by using a tool, by automating some processes, by looking documents differently, it can actually save them time. So organically, teams, they start introducing some of these automation principles to make their, if you like, job more efficient. There's also the top-down approach, which is driven by the strategy. And as I said, the strategy is towards this programmable AI-driven network, which in that respect, we, apart from actually as part of the ongoing network simplification, we have the program of network simplification we have. And we also in the process of creating the right DevOps environment, AI ops environment that we can start breaking silos and start actually looking not only the subdomain of the subdomain automation and AI application, but actually start thinking how we can apply this across different domains to orchestrate our services. So in summary, the automation and AI is a journey, and we are on that journey already by making sure we have the right foundations in place. But of course, we need to make sure also we are a brownfield operator. We have a lot of legacy in our network. We need to make sure we address the legacy, but also the data. And of course, we have to make sure the technology to evolve and take the right time to make sure we don't, if you like, over-promise on something and under-deliver. So it's better to make sure we do the right steps and see how this is progressing. So in terms of specific use cases, we are looking, as Diego said, similar to other service providers and other companies, we're looking using AI for data, for document and code simplification. We are also using AI in, well, and again, this remember in telecoms and in our industry, these are not new concept. We had the self-optimizing network is an old concept that goes many years ago. So we are already using techniques in terms of how we optimize our networks. We are looking also how we can use techniques to create, first of all, to have threat intelligence more in terms of cybersecurity. So how we can use AI to see more of a threat intelligence, but also how we can create defense mechanism in the network and how we can use AI to accelerate this and teach the network how to kind of create more of a self-healing zero-touch vision. And then other things we are doing is we are also using machine learning, which is a non-Gen AI type of technology, if you like, where we are looking how we can detect anomalies and then how we can preempt potentially some of those anomalies in the service delivery. And then we can engage with the customer and deliver more personalized services. So this is, if you like, on the network aspect. But of course, there are a lot of opportunities in the future around that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nektaria. That was really comprehensive. Thank you. Thank you very much. And your response actually led to my next question, which is around use cases. So thank you so much for starting us off with that. And just to clarify, our reference to AI technology and the use of AI, like Diego rightly mentioned, and this is a message to the audience, is we're not focused just on generative AI, because we understand that there is a lot of hype around generative AI, but there's a lot more. And to the point that Nektaria raised, the industry has already had already started exploring other AI technologies before generative AI. So really, this panel will be looking not just at non-generative AI related technologies, but also looking at the non-generative AI, so the predictive AI and other types of AI technologies as well. So Nektaria, you started us off talking about the use cases, and I will ask a question that relates to one of the points you mentioned in terms of how BT is preparing or setting the right foundations, because I thought that was a very important point you raised there, but I'll come to that. Whilst we're still talking about the use cases, I'll just move on to Diego to please share with us some of the use cases that you're seeing in that Vodafone is deploying. I know you've hinted a bit on some of the use cases, but other use cases that Vodafone is working on at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Well, if we start from traditional AI, chatbots are the typical candidate where AI and machine learning are the more easy to apply. One example being our customer-facing chatbot. There, the traditional AI can be very effective in, for example, enabling sentiment analysis or understanding the topic that the customer is seeking help for. Let's say that there's a customer that's not a native English speaker, they have some difficulty in explaining what they're looking for, and Gen AI can really dig deep into the meaning of the request and direct the customer to the right answer, for example. So, and that's a very clear example of how AI can increase customer satisfaction, and therefore you have a direct return on investment on your AI investment, which is to make customer happier. We all know how in telco customer churn is always a concern. So happy customer are loyal customers, and that's what we're looking for, really. So that's one example. I mentioned sentiment analysis, so understanding how a customer feels at the end of an interaction with the chatbot can drive further development, or can drive a follow-up with that customer or with a subset of customers, etc. There are many examples of this. So this is one use case, the customer-facing chatbot. If we stay on chatbots, then you have the internal chatbots that are extensively used in Vodafone as well, where I mentioned earlier, optimizing the use of time by highly skilled workforce. So if you take an engineer receiving a call for a virtual call for a ticket regarding an incident, and they have to start troubleshooting this incident. That takes a lot of time, and it can go through a level of escalations that also burns time, so your mean time to resolution goes up, etc. If your AI is able to detect what the most likely situation or case for that incident is, it can already point the engineer in the right direction. So it can reduce mean time to resolution quite significantly, or it can suggest automated resolutions. If we've seen 9 times out of 10 restarting a server fixes a certain issue, it may not be the resolution to the root cause of the incident, but it may resolve the incident temporarily. So we can propose an immediate course of action to the engineer that doesn't require them to do some troubleshooting. This actually reminds me that there's also an element of security in there. So traditionally, an engineer would troubleshoot an incident, pinpoint that the incident is related to a specific server, and they would have to log into that server. Now, the cloud and automation changes that a little, but let's focus on something that we all have, our legacy applications. This engineer needs to log into that server. They need to find the username and password. That often leads to usernames and passwords being stored in less than secure ways for ease of access. If we can remove that, if we can have integration between the user face, the UI, the user interface that the engineer is using, and the system that not prevents, but doesn't require the engineer to input the username and password, but retrieve the password from a secure system, that's an increase in the security of the whole process. So there's an element of optimization, but there's also an element of security where AI can be a factor. Moving away from chatbots, and maybe I did mention earlier, one of the Gen AI use cases that we looked into recently, it's not the only one, but it's the one that comes to mind right now, is legacy applications. We all have those applications that we acquired over time. They're still performing some function, maybe a diminished function, but they are still required. Let's say that there's a regulatory requirement around a specific feature for an application. That application is not running on up-to-date hardware, or the software that was used to write the application is now reaching end of life, end of support, and the emergency to rewrite the application. That's where AI can do the analysis, can suggest some courses of action, but there's always the human element overseeing the process and deciding which course of action is the most appropriate for the use case. This is an example looking at the IT side. That's where I'm more comfortable. Again, don't want to monopolize the conversation, so back to you, but I'm happy to expand more if there's more time.
No, sure. That's very helpful, very insightful. I'll just double down, and this kind of leads to the next question around the implementation of these use cases. You know, in your ending, you referred to some of the Gen AI related use cases that Vodafone is working on, and whenever we talk about generative AI use cases, there's always a discussion about, are you using private LLMs or using public cloud public LLMs? So it will be helpful to kind of understand from your perspective that when it comes to Gen AI adoption or implementation of these use cases, what's Vodafone's view in terms of using private or public LLMs?
Let's call it a cautious view. As you mentioned, telco is a highly regulated business. So there needs to be a lot of attention on what kind of databases we tap into. So public LLMs are a great resource, but they're also potentially a risky approach. So first of all, we have a governance framework that regulates when and how public LLMs can be integrated with our solutions. If in doubt, public LLMs would be out of the picture. We also have, and I'm actually going back to something that Nektaria mentioned earlier, if you don't have good data, then your AI is almost pointless, because AI can only do what it can do based on the quality of the data you have. So one of our big initiatives is to enrich our internal databases, as in data lakes coming from different areas of the business, where each team owns their own data. They can onboard their data on our analytics platform, and they can then self-serve, build LLMs on top of that with help or on their own, depending on the level of maturity they have. So our first step there is to make sure that our teams understand the data they have, what they can do with it. They improve the quality of their data, and that then opens the doors to many different use cases where we can leverage our internal LLMs and therefore keep our secrets secret and keep our company secure. So there's no rejection of public LLMs, but there's a governance framework that regulates how and when public LLMs can be used and where they are not appropriate. And there's a lot of focus on improving and enriching our internal data so that we can build private LLMs on top of that.
That is very helpful. So it's more about taking a more cautious approach, but then having a governance structure in place that allows you to interact effectively with the large language models, private or public. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Nektaria, over to you to talk to us a bit more about BT, about how BT, your view in terms of different use cases when it comes to generative AI and non-generative AI related use cases.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. All right, so I think for me, we need to look at the two Gen AI, non-Gen AI separate, but also together, because I believe they complement each other, although they have different benefits. So the Gen AI, for me, it effectively democratizes AI capability. So while you need very skilled people to build large language models and train the models, the users can be nearly anyone. And they don't need special degrees. They don't need to understand how the machine works. They just use the technology. And the analogy is similar to the move from the mainframe computers, where we have large machines used by highly technical experts, to a personal computer, which anyone can use. So the Gen AI, in a way, it is a revolutionary shift in terms of how we can use technology as a power tool. And as a result of that, we can use these tools for content and code generation. We are actually using it. In fact, in research, we're looking how we can use Gen AI tools for incident simulations, for even threat incident simulation. What is happening if a threat comes into a network virus, how this is going to spread into the network. We are also using it in developing cybersecurity tools for advanced threat intelligence. So what are the malicious domains, what are the malware, where this is generated, how it links together. And also we are using it in terms of documentation as well, how we can manage our documentation. So for me, the Gen AI, to summarize, it enables speed and efficiency, and it is a user-friendly interface that enables further innovation. Now, the non-Gen AI part, it enables, as far as the network is concerned, specialized network use cases. For example, we can use these techniques for anomaly detection. And this is not new. We are using it to understand if there is an anomaly in the system, to detect it and effectively preempt some actions. But also we can think about that in terms of how we can make the network more autonomous, where not only we can detect the anomaly, how we can use techniques to predict the anomaly and potentially automate some of the actions to fix a problem, although not all the actions will be possible to automate, but some of them might be. So we are looking at these techniques as to how we can potentially assure the service and drive into our automation agenda. Other things we can use the non-Gen AI type of models and solutions is how we can optimize and orchestrate our services, how we can ensure we have efficient resource utilization, the servers, hybrid cloud environments, how we can use these techniques to do this, do traffic analysis, and potentially drive more intelligence into the network. And of course, we can use this also for more strategic kind of analysis, like understand where we need to invest more, how do we spread our investment planning, how do we deliver more personalized services. So then the non-Gen AI part, in essence, it can offer reliability and stability, and it is often data-driven decision. Now, for me, the interesting part is when you put the two together, because I believe they can complement each other. And in fact, the Gen AI, it is a push, a strong, it is actually helping us to accelerate this, what we talk about automation. I believe if you put the two together, they have a collaborative role. For example, you can have a Gen AI that can generate a script or a playbook, and then you can have the non-Gen AI to execute and monitor. Or you can have the Gen AI to create configurations and non-Gen AI to ensure there's continuous optimization. Or in terms of the automation, the Gen AI can simplify the front-end task in terms of the interaction with the network and the system, and the non-Gen AI can actually make sure the processes are in place to balance what you need to do. So for me, in summary, although Gen AI revolutionized how we can create, interact, innovate by focusing on content and knowledge, and then non-Gen AI, it still remains an indispensable and reliable tool for operation. Together, they can create a powerful synergy that can enable more efficient, user-friendly, if you like, and more personalized services we can deliver through our networks in the future. So that's, if you like, in terms of how the two things come together in terms of use cases. And yes, in BT, in research, we are looking, if you like, what is coming next in terms of different use cases I mentioned, but also in terms of the operation and delivery. As I said, there are teams in the organization that they look specific use cases that, as I mentioned earlier, some of them that they deliver value already to what they're doing, and driving into this, if you like, our strategic North Star, which is the programmable AI-driven autonomous network.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nektaria. That's really helpful. I wish I had enough time to double down, deep dive into some of the points you raised. But those are very, 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 very helpful and useful insights you have there. And what was really interesting is how you're connecting, how you've been able to connect capabilities between the generative and non-generative AI to deliver, more or less kind of end-to-end solution as it were. So that in itself is very interesting and very insightful. Thank you very much for sharing that. For want of time, we're just going to jump into trying to discuss how your organizations are addressing the challenges, because in the course of our discussions, we've kind of come up with a number of those challenges, data being one of them, skill set being potentially one of them, then how you embed this next, this capability within a legacy network environment, or an environment that's got a lot of legacy systems. So if I start with you, Diego, on that, could you just share with us some of the strategies or key points or key activities that Vodafone has embarked on to address some of these top level challenges associated with AI?
Yeah, sure. I like to think that the sensible approach is stand before you walk before you run before you sprint. So we've been working with AI for a good few years now, and that was our standing and walking. And we are now in that phase where we are teaching our teams to walk on their own and building trust in the tools that we make available. I didn't mention my team, IT for IT platform engineering. We manage shared platforms that are then adopted internally by other Vodafone departments and local markets. So we are making the tools available to other teams and departments. We're at the stage where we want to build trust in the tools, so that teams feel comfortable using AI. Nektaria raised a very valid point that you need very skilled people to build those very convoluted LLMs, very complicated LLMs, but then the user on the other side can be a decision maker that doesn't need to know the ins and outs of the model, but they need to know what to do with the information that the model provides. So we're at that stage where we're guiding by hand our teams to onboard their data in our platforms, help them build those convoluted LLMs, but then make the output easy for them to digest and to use in their decisions. And then you have the Gen AI side, which is, we mentioned it a few times. It's a bit of a hype right now. So there's a lot of stakeholders trying to jump on the Gen AI trend. But again, we are approaching that with caution, focusing on where the real value is. It's no secret that budgets are always something that's hard to manage. Money needs to be spent where the return on investment is higher. So we have, again, an internal panel, a framework to assess different potential Gen AI use cases. And we assess them on their merits, on the value that they can provide to Vodafone, which doesn't always translate in revenue. It may translate into optimization. It may translate into other elements that still improve the Vodafone bottom line. And once we have a prioritization of the Gen AI use cases that are proposed, then we allocate budget to the ones that are most strategic to the organization. Hope this answers your question, Adaora.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And the last point you raised around, the fact that budgets are limited, and so you need to be a bit more tactical in terms of strategic, in terms of how you allocate that limited budget to use cases that will really drive return on investment is very critical. And that's one point that a lot of operators tend to have an issue with. I've got limited budget, how do I allocate this effectively with a technology that will cost me, that will require some level of investment? How do I manage that effectively? So thank you very much for those key points, that other operators can take on board and use that to facilitate their adoption of AI. So thank you very much. Nektaria, could you please share with us some of the best practices that BT, you've already started us off with what BT is doing on the data side of things, but with respect to other challenges, what's happening?
So as I said earlier, we are in the process of modernizing our network, which I believe it is very, very important. We cannot run, we need to rationalize as well, right? So we have especially brownfield operators that have a lot of legacy. We cannot run these things on the legacy. So we need to effectively rationalize what of these things we need to migrate to technologies, and which things we need to say we build only from now on. So there is an element of rationalization. Data is very important. We talked about that before, and Diego also mentioned about skills. And I think it's quite interesting because in the past we had very distinct disciplines. You had the data engineers, you had the radio engineers, the network engineers, the maintenance engineers. Now we start seeing that these disciplines, they start coming together. So it seems like the data and AI is a foundation layer of skills somebody needs to have, and then on top of that you need the domain knowledge to be able to use the tools based on the use case you are trying to address. So and also it's also the additional, if you like, requirement I see coming is not only to know how to implement these tools, is also how to explain an output of that tool, the explainability of AI, the skill to be able to remove bias or understand bias. This is also a part of, if you like, the things, the areas, the skills and new skills I see coming in the sector. And then, of course, we need to understand what really that means for the network and the infrastructure. So it's different to have a proof of concept in research where you look, for example, threat intelligence or anomaly detection in a proof of concept. And it's different to actually take this and put it into a live network where you need to increase the data volume you have to deal with, and also the complexity of the scale of the infrastructure. So scalability impact this will have in terms of what do we need to do in compute infrastructure in place, network traffic that is generated within the network as a result of having these AI tools is something where we are looking. I'm not saying it's part of the process of what do we need to invest, where do we need to invest in terms of decision. And I agree with Diego. It is very easy in this concept, especially with the hype around that, to jump into planning with very elaborate use cases, with a lot of complexity and potentially overpromise. So we are actually following a similar approach to we take a step at a time. We need to make sure we have the foundations in place. We need to make sure we build the right foundations, and then we have the right use cases to be able to deliver the outcome to maintain the momentum of the business, to continue basically the investment cycle in terms of delivering gradually this capability. So to summarize, data challenges, data is very important. Making sure you have the right infrastructure in place, understanding what these models do in terms, what do they need in terms of compute infrastructure, but also what is the additional data and whether you need any additional capacity for these AI solutions, not only from the traffic they generate themselves, but even the traffic it is generated as a result of having this capability. Potentially you get different type of responses. So you need to understand the impact on the capacity, then upskilling and skills in the organization and the culture to drive innovation. And of course is focus on delivering clear and measurable business value. It's not only about we should make sure we don't overpromise. We need to make sure we deliver something that actually can show what is the next, and it can measure the value that delivers to the business.
Thank you so much, Nektaria, for finishing us off on that note. That's most appreciated. Thanks a lot. We're already at the end, so really appreciate your time, Diego and Nektaria. We did have one question around the use of AI.
You can take that if you want.
Yeah.
I'll keep
Okay.
quiet. Adaora.
Okay, all right. So we have one question from the audience around the use of AI in terms of optimizing radio access network. Is this a question, Nektaria, that you're able to speak to briefly, given little time we have left?
Sorry, I can briefly mention this. Obviously, there's a whole thesis around that, and we don't have the time to cover it in detail. But the radio network, the same as any other domain in networks these days, it is a domain where it has a lot of insight, telemetry insight, data insight, user also experience insights. So for me, having the right focus, making sure you look the data, because all this AI is a data challenge, right? You need to look the data with a different lens. So depending on what you're trying to optimize, for example, if you want to optimize the user experience you deliver, then you need to combine network data with user experience, performance data, and try to look this with the right lenses and what you are trying to answer with what is your, if you like, your strategic question, your business question. And then by looking this in the right lenses, you can apply the right models to address this. And we have actually in BT, in fact, we have used some of these techniques in the past. Not, as I said, this is not really new. In the past, to understand how we can detect, for example, problems in performance and how we can proactively try to address, or what do we need to do in terms of changing the configuration or optimizing the network in order to deliver a good user experience.
Thank you so much, Nektaria. That is very insightful. Thanks so much. On that note, we will kind of wrap up this panel. So thanks a lot to everyone in the audience, and to my panelists, Diego and Nektaria. We do appreciate your time and the insights you've shared with us. Thanks so much.